Coach Scott Cooper, been at IU South Bend over 12 years. They've had a heck of a run in the CCAC. Coach Cooper, he's loading up and he's getting ready to make another run at that Chicagoland title. Get ready, we're going to talk some Titans basketball. Cascade Hoops Talk starts right now. Coach Scott Cooper, he's really had a great run at IU South Bend. They've been a perennial 20-plus game team each year for the last several years. Last year in the postseason, they beat St. X and Roosevelt in the CCAC title. Wasn't quite enough to get them to the national tournament. Coach Cooper, smart guy, majored in mathematics. That right there, I mean, that's pretty impressive to me. But he majored in mathematics at Allegheny, played some D3 ball, and really has a very logical approach to the game. I think you're going to enjoy listening to Coach Cooper. Let's talk some Titan basketball. Cascade Hoops Talk, Billy D. I got Scott Cooper. He's the head men's basketball coach at IUSB, Indiana South Bend. Coach, you've been there. You'll be your 12th season, first time on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me aboard.
So you're up there in South Bend, a place I've been. Shameless commercial. If you're ever in that area, I didn't want to go to Notre Dame because I thought it would be a madhouse. But South Bend makes it so easy. There's parking right across from there, and you can just walk right past the football stadium, right onto campus. So if you're ever in that area, go to Notre Dame and walk the campus. It's amazing.
It's there's no better place in town to walk your dog, too. I can tell you firsthand.
Yeah. So, Coach, you're in the Chicagoland Conference there. Well, there's three schools right together. Obviously, Bethel is in the crossroads. But how far is Holy Cross from you?
10 minutes, maybe if we hit all the lights right. It's pretty close. It's just on the north side of town, on the other side of Notre Dame there.
So the rest of the Chicagoland, obviously Holy Cross is up the street. What is the drive like?
Far better than most places in the St. Ambrose University is probably about 4 hours away, and then we just added Viterbo University, which I should really know this better, but I think they're about 6 hours away. But everybody else is about 2 hours or less. Truthfully, most of them hour and a half, maybe at the most. It's one of the perks of being in this league is just how little travel we have. I mean, we're in our case in particular, we're in the Eastern time zone. Everybody else is in the Central time zone, and so we're leaving a little bit later and things like that. It's outstanding, in terms of geography.
So I want to talk about this year's team, but we got to look back just for a moment. Dejon Barney, the career he had there, two-time All-American. Talk about his career and what he meant to Titan basketball.
Yeah, Dejon's about as good a player as we've had here, and it's a funny story how he ended up here. He's from South Bend originally, and in high school I didn't even know he existed. He was about 6'3" or 6'4". He played for a very good high school program and barely touched the floor. He's actually FaceTiming me right now. But he was just kind of a throw-in on a junior college team his freshman year of college, and then he ended up at Lincoln College, now closed. But
right. They
had joined the CCAC for a couple of years. Well, that was the COVID year. And in our case, all the IU campuses, we got shut down for basically the entire regular season. So the CCAC went to a rule that year with everything being so unusual that anybody who wanted to play in the conference tournament could. And our conference, we didn't play any regular season conference games that year, but they let us start up about 2 weeks before the conference tournament was supposed to go. And so we thought, we'll give it a shot. And anyway, long story short, we ended up playing Lincoln in the second round of that. And I'm talking to their coach, Pat Lepper, at the time. And he's like, oh, yeah, we got a South Bend kid on the team. I was like, who? And he's like, yeah, this Barney kid. I was like, at that time, he was a mediocre player, but he was getting better. And man, I didn't even know he was alive, And then, a year later, they're closing down, and he's looking for a school. And he'd been like a low-level all-conference guy or something for us. And like, hey, we could use some size. We're graduating one of our big guys. And he comes in here and fits in as well as any human being possibly could. And we're just a sponge. And, just a great kid to have in our program. And, obviously the results speak for themselves. But, really helped elevate us and when we were losing a lot of guys and kind of keep this thing going for us.
Yeah, yeah, it really worked out obviously well for both of you. Coach
Yeah.
Cooper, you've had a heck of a run. Obviously, you're going into your 12th season, but just going back 5 years, I mean, in 1920, you won 25 games. 2021 was a COVID year. In 2021, 22, 25 games. 22, 23, 23 games, and then 22 wins last season. What have been the keys to your success the past 5 years?
Well, I think anytime you have that kind of success, it always starts with the players you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've been really fortunate to have a really good group of guys, and then you talk about the COVID and all that stuff. All those guys stuck around for an extra year. I mean, we literally anybody that had an extra year used their extra year. So, we've been old for a long time, which has certainly helped extend that run some. And then obviously, like I say, getting a guy like Dejan Barney, but. Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that happens here is we've got a lot of institutional support. Our current chancellor, Dr. Elrod, I know this sounds like coach speak, but it's really true, has been incredibly supportive. And, even taking it back to that COVID year there where I think we played 2 regular season games, then we got shut down for 85 straight days without practicing or playing.
Yeah.
We throw it at them, or when we threw it there, like, hey, if we're allowed to start back up, are you cool with us playing? She's like, oh yeah, go ahead. Anything we can do to help. I mean, she really was supportive in every way a human being could be. And then the staff that she's hired has been, just as supportive. And I mean, you talk about a good situation, the things that everybody's going through in higher ed now with, lower enrollments and things like that. Like we really haven't had to deal with any of that stuff here. And, some of that's being part of the IU brand and some of that's our location. But, have those resources, at a place that has that support. I mean, you just couldn't ask for better as a coach.
Yeah, Coach, you're a guy. You grew up over in Worcester, over in Ohio. You go to Allegheny and play basketball. You're a math major. When in your life did you decide you wanted to be a basketball coach?
Much to my parents' chagrin, right around the time I was graduating college. Yeah, that's I go to an NCAA Division III school and pay the money I did to go to school and everything else, and then I was all set and ready to be an actuary. And my college coach, I blew out my knee, missed most of my senior year, and just kind of helped out any way I could. And my college coach came to me one day and said, "Hey, I'm getting ready to go make $70,000 a year or whatever it was." And he comes up to me and says, "Hey, there's this graduate assistant job at this little Division III school in New York called Alfred, and it'll pay you $1,000 a year and pay for your grad school. What do you think?" I was like, "Yeah, that sounds better." So it's I just kind of fell into it more than anything, and I've been very fortunate to work for some really great people, and kind of always landed on my feet when things weren't going wrong or when things weren't going right for me, and just kind of, like I said, been very, very lucky to end up in all the right places at the right times.
Do you believe you have a different approach to how you see the game? As mathematics major, you were going to be an actuary. Do you look at things just a little bit different?
In this day and age, probably not as much anymore. Maybe when I first got into it, I don't know that the analytics side that a lot of people are real big on now was as big a thing when I first started, 20 some odd years ago. But I think the world's kind of caught up on that. But I think it has helped grow our program a little bit in that. I always tell the story when I got the job here. I had a buddy named Nevada Smith, who's now an assistant at Marquette University. And he was the head G League coach for the Houston Rockets, and they were slinging threes and doing all the stuff that everybody kind of does now. And I was like, I got to see this. And so I went down there and was able to spend a week with him, and it just kind of fit into, all that stuff that kind of talk about as a coach on paper when you're talking about that. And I think, I had that preparation. So I was able to maybe take those chances a little bit earlier because, I knew the math and some of that. But, I think the rest of the world's kind of caught up to that now, too.
Coach, you're a defensive-minded coach. Last season, you held teams to under 70 points, less than 42% shooting. Just talk about your basketball mindset and what you try to achieve with your teams.
Yeah, we just try to be as balanced as we can on both ends of the floor. I don't know that we were nearly as good offensively last year as we've been in the past, but, defensively we had a really good team. And, I think what we always try to do, like anybody, is just try to, maximize the things we can be good at. And we had a team that was really long and really athletic. And, we started out, 6'9" with Dejan Barney and 6'10" with Nick Mullen. Mm-hmm. Both those guys are really mobile. And then we had good defensive guards and Terry Ford and Quintez Columbus. And, just allowed us to maybe do some things that, made us really good on that end of the floor when we weren't necessarily as strong on offense. And truthfully, the year before was kind of the other way around. We had a lot of really good offensive players and not as much defense. So we try to, just maximize what we're good at. And we kind of saw early on in this season that we were going to be a good defensive team, and just kind of leaned into that as best we could.
So coming into this season, you got a little bit of work to do. You've lost about half your minutes, half your points, half your rebound. I know these are, you know these numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you got some guys coming back too. I mean, you and I were just talking before you start. A couple of seniors coming back that played tons of minutes for you, both Petty and Jylan Petty and Quentin Columbus. But you've got a core coming back.
Yeah, and luckily they're experienced guys too. Jalen's a fifth-year senior, and Quintez is, in his fourth year, and they've both been all-conference guys in other plays. Actually, Jalen was last year in our league too, coming off the bench for us. But he really played starters minutes and closed out a lot of games for us. And then having a guy Nick Mullen who started all year for us last year, and I think he's got some potential that he hasn't quite tapped into yet, especially with his size and his skill set that. Hopefully he can kind of grow into. And then a guy like Deshaun Burnett, who's been in our program for 4 years and been a part of 3 NAI tournament teams and, conference championship and things like that too. He's kind of been there, done that. So it's a pretty good place to start. And then we have some younger guys that didn't see a ton of minutes last year that are pretty talented that we're hoping can grow into bigger roles. And, a couple of, guys coming in too that we think have a chance to contribute. So it'll be interesting to see. It's the first time in a while that we've been relatively young, in that we'll have 4 seniors on this team, but at the same time, they're going to be not nearly as experienced as the seniors we've had who were fifth-year guys who've been in our program a long time. So it'll be interesting to see how quickly that transition takes for us because we haven't had to go through that for a while.
You're coming off a pretty successful season, 15-5 in the Chicagoland. What are going to be the keys for you guys this season?
I hope that it's going to be that we got to sustain kind of who we've been in the past in terms of being able to be a good team on both ends of the floor. But our league is so up and down that I think we've been pretty fortunate to be consistent here the last 4 or 5 years. But I think all of that Nazarene's kind of been there too. But the other teams have kind of been a revolving door who's been at the top with us, and that always is nerve-wracking a little bit because you don't quite know who you've got to beat to get to that top. And if you would have told me Roosevelt last year, I would have laughed at you. And they kind of, I think they won the league by 2 games last year. And then IU Northwest kind of snuck in there late and really got hot. And I think they're going to have a good team. But so you never quite know who that team that you're going to have to overcome is. And obviously, like I said, us and all of that have been pretty consistent there. But there's been years where we've won the tournament and they've won the regular season. I'm not sure either of us were the best 2 teams by the end of the year. So. I think that's some of the fun of being in our league is there's not a traditional power anymore like there was when I first got here. It was Cardinal Stritch was coming off a national championship and won 30 games, and Robert Morris was our 4th place team, and they were in the Final Four. The depth of the league. I remember looking at my assistant coach the first year here, and I was like, "Oh, how are we ever going to win a game in this league?" And so much has changed in such a short period of time, but. I think it's also what kind of makes it fun coaching in this league is you never quite can say, oh, yeah, this is going to have to be what we're have to be great at because this team is going to be at the top and that's who we've got to overcome. And I'm excited. It's the first time, like I said, I really have to do a lot of coaching because we got a lot of new guys. Like
you say, Roosevelt kind of came out and they didn't seem like they took the pedal off the gas, but the league got pretty tight toward the end. Y'all ended up 3 of you ended up tied for second. It was a pretty good race.
Yeah, it was fun, and even with them being up a couple of games on people, there was still a chance going into the last week of the season that any one of us who of the 3 teams that tied for second there had a chance at it. And I remember thinking we could be anywhere from the 1 seed to the 4 seed going into the last week of the season, and I think we actually ended up being the 4 seed after tiebreakers. But it was really interesting. And even, there was St. Xavier was really starting to play well at that point in the year too. If you had told me they had made a run, it wouldn't have surprised me. So, it was definitely a top heavy league last year. And a large part of that was due to injuries with, teams like Holy Cross and Governor State and St. Francis, who are usually better than they were last year. But it really was kind of an any given night. And, I think there's going to be a lot of turnover in the league this year. That's potentially going to happen again this year.
I'm looking at your schedule, and you won those. You beat St. Xavier by 2 in the Chicagoland, and then you beat Roosevelt. Those 2 huge wins for you in that conference tournament, and then you fell to IU Northwest. I'm surprised you didn't play beyond that. I'm trying to be as tactful as possible here.
No, it's okay. We thought we had a chance of getting in the tournament, and I'm actually on the Midwest Arc there, but I kind of knew going into it. You started to realize, one, that there weren't a ton of upsets, and then two, again, some of those teams that are normally stronger had rough years. Governors and
Yeah.
St. Francis in particular, that would have helped our strength. And then we had, like we played St. Francis, Indiana, who was playing dynamite up until about Christmas. We had a good win over them, and then they kind of fell apart due to a whole lot of injuries to their starting lineup. So you kind of started to see the writing on the wall. And then, Goshen really struggled, who, a team that we're going to play every year because they're local. And
Right.
You start to see what's happening to your strength of schedule as the year goes on. And you're like, oh boy, we could be in trouble if we didn't win the tournament. So I knew going into, even going into the tournament that, we had a 20-win team, I think, at that point, that there's a chance we could get left out. And, I'm not sure where exactly we fell in that pecking order, but
Right.
I know it was close. So, it's, just the luck.
Well, it's all spilt milk at this point. I guess just looking at it from the outside, after you beat St. X and then you beat Roosevelt, it just surprised me a little. Anyway,
Yeah.
Like I say, it's all spilt milk at this point.
Yeah. Well, and if the worst thing you can say about us is that, we finished 22 wins and second in our conference and then runner up in the conference tournament, like it's, when I first got here, they'd never advanced past the first round of the conference, advanced past the second round of the conference tournament. Like, my wife was all disappointed and everything. I'm like, hey, we got to pump the brakes here. Like, it was 10 years ago, this would have been the best season in school history. And now we're talking about it as a disappointment. So it's, it just shows you how far this place has come as a university in terms of the support that they're giving to athletics. And it's like I said, it's a good place to work. Like, it's a wonderful problem to have.
How many students are at IU South Bend?
We're right around 5,000 students.
Pretty big school.
There's 9 IU campuses. Obviously, Bloomington, the one that everybody knows, and now IU Indianapolis is. Those two are bigger than us, and then all the rest of the IU campuses, we're the third. We're the biggest one, so we're the third biggest out of all of them. And we're a little bit more traditional campus than, say, IU Kokomo or IU East or IU Northwest or am I forgetting IU Southeast, IU Columbus, those places that also compete at the NAIA level.
Mm-hmm.
And they're primarily commuter schools. We're a much more traditional campus and things like that. So we're a little bit different. We've got some things going for us that maybe some of those schools have a little more challenges with.
You mentioned that Goshen's just down the road from you. You usually play them in the preseason. Who else will you play in the preseason this year?
We always play Bethel for the same reasons. I don't know.
Yeah, was that 10 minutes away?
Yeah, not even. I can run there in 10 minutes.
Coach, I see you. I saw on your bio you live in Mishawaka.
That's right. Yeah, it's we are as close to Mishawaka as you can be without actually being in Mishawaka here. So, we play Bethel. We've got St. Francis, Indiana coming again. We're playing Cornerstone. We're going down to Shawnee State.
Wow.
Working on a game with Indiana Tech. I don't know if that's going to work out or not yet, but we're trying to, work something out there. So we're trying to play a good schedule again and, see what we can do. But, like I said, sometimes that's luck. Like, I thought St. Francis was really good last year, and then all of a sudden there's 3 starters to season-ending injuries, So, we'll see where we go. But, we like to challenge ourselves. And, I think obviously you like to play those local games too, just because they're fun. We all end up with a handful of guys from the area on our team, and, it attracts a crowd. And, we're always going to play those too and try to have bragging rights in town.
So with Bethel, do you guys just do a home and home? You eat every year? Just go back and
yes and no. Yeah, the last couple of years we've done a thing. We've done a classic with us, Bethel, Holy Cross, and Goshen. Kind of fell apart a little bit this year, but that's been a lot of fun. So we'd play. We play 2 nights. We play one night at one site and one night at another site. And one of the Crossroads leagues would host one night. One of the CCAC schools would host the other night, and then we played both games there. And that was a lot of fun. I hope we can get that going again.
Do you get pretty good crowds for those local games like that?
Honestly, it depends on Notre Dame's football schedule. That's
yeah, I bet.
You're always kind of falling victim to that around here. But we do pretty well, especially for the games with us in Bethel. I think where was that at last year? That would have been at Holy Cross. Yeah, that was Holy Cross has got a really small gym over there. We probably filled that up pretty good for that one. The game at their place a couple years ago was a great crowd. So, if we play them on the right nights, if we're playing on Saturdays and Notre Dame's got a home football games, it's going to be girlfriends and families only. So
yeah,
it's just we are where we are, and we're very aware of that.
I see you got a couple South Bend guys. It looks like you you recruit pretty much all over Indiana, Michigan. Where do you primarily recruit?
Yeah, you hit it on the head there. I think Indiana is always going to be our bread and butter. Being a state school, we've got really low tuition for those guys, so it helps us stretch our scholarship money a little bit.
Yeah.
We've got pretty good tuition rates for, it's kind of a random assortment of states, but the most beneficial to us are Michigan, Ohio, and Illinois, since we're pretty close to those two. So we try to get into there quite a bit too, especially since we tend to be more affordable than their, flagship universities in their home states. So that's kind of been our. Now we've had some guys from other places, but Indiana is always going to be, kind of where it all starts for us. And luckily for us, and I say this to everybody who asks this question, is you can be a lot worse than just having Indiana kids on your roster. I mean, they really care about high school basketball here, and they're well coached. And we've had, of all our best players we've ever had here, probably 99% of them are Indiana kids. So it's a heck of a backyard to start in.
So, Coach, it looks like it'll be another competitive year in the Chicagoland. You've been doing this for a while. One thing I wanted to ask is, what is your favorite thing about being a basketball coach?
I think just the interaction you get to have with the kids and being a part of their journey. I think, obviously the X's and O's, everybody likes doing that, and the competitive side of it. But I think anybody who's been in it for a long time, if you're really lasting in this, it's kind of the relationships you form with these guys. And, some of them you're going to be talking to for the rest of their lives, and some of them will go on and just look back at you as a memory. But I think it's a lot of fun to see the growth that guys make. And we've in this day of transfer era, transfer portal culture, or whatever you want to call it, we haven't experienced a whole lot of that here. That's not to say it won't happen at some point, but I think that's made it a little bit more fun for me too, just seeing how these guys and getting to know them when they're juniors in high school or whatever, all the way through, and watching the people they come in as and the people that go out as. And we just graduated a kid named Sam Snodgrass, who was here for us for 5 years, and it's funny just looking back at the person he was when he got here. Who's 6'3", 160 pounds, soaking wet, and really kind of immature and very temperish. And by the time he graduated here, he's one of our toughest kids. And in our conference semifinal game, he makes what ends up being the game-winning play, blocking a shot in a bad switch and spraining his ankle going down to the floor, and didn't carry. I mean, his very first question was when I went over to check on him, did we win? So just seeing him grow up, and you could say that for so many guys that came through here. I think that's I think anybody that lasts a long time in coaching, that's the part they enjoy the most.
Coach, with the new, everybody talks about the new transfer era and it's changed so much. What's your general philosophy? Do you try to get high school kids and build culture, or you look a lot of transfers?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I've always been a high school guy first. And again, I mentioned how many guys we've had for 5 years.
Yeah.
It's one of those things I'm kind of trying to reevaluate a little bit. And again, we haven't run into a whole lot of guys transferring in to play at other places. I think in the 12 years or 11 years that I've been here, we've only had 6 guys transfer out and end up on somebody else's roster. So, but again, I'm not naive to the fact that it's probably coming at some point. So I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to be somebody's last school as opposed to their first school.
Right.
And does that mean we need to take more transfers, or do we need to evaluate certain personality types that maybe are less likely to transfer? And I don't know the answer to that. I think that's new for all of us. I don't want to sit here and be a curmudgeon and say, oh, we're only going to do it this way, and then get left behind, But at the same time, I really don't know what that looks like. The one thing we do have going for us, in terms of NAI in the grand scheme of things, is that we can make it free for a lot of students because of how low our price point is. And, sometimes that's tough over the top when they're looking, let's say, so-and-so wants to transfer to another NAI school and they want to go to a private school where, that school can only, scholarship them to tuition, and they're going to have to pay room and board. Well, that kid's probably in a better spot here than they are. And, but like I said, I think it's coming, and I just, I'm trying to figure out, like we all are, what that looks like for us. So as of right now, we're still trying to, keep it to freshmen and sprinkle in transfers to fill in the holes. But at the same time, like I said, I'm not naive to the fact that we may have to adapt as the world changes here.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out, because what you just described is where tons of programs are, right? This is the way we've typically done it. However, we have to reevaluate that almost on a year-to-year basis. How is this thing going to work, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting because now people are becoming so more brazen about recruiting guys on your roster. Like I won't, throw any other schools under the bus, but we had 2 or 3 schools that reached out to one of our current players this summer, just cold calling, like, hey, this isn't a kid who has any intent to transfer by any means, but, he sent me screenshots of the text he was getting from certain coaches and things like that. So, I mean, people are recruiting your roster while they're playing for you too. And, I mean, it's crazy, and Dejan Barney, talking to him, like last year, he had 2 or 3 Division I schools that reached out to him, about transferring to them for his final year of eligibility and things like that. So, yeah, and I even told him, like, not these weren't the level of schools that were going to throw money around at him, but like, if Notre Dame calls and they offer you $100,000, I'll kick your tail out the door. I mean, it's, it may be life-changing for some of those guys to move on to something like that. So you got to be a little bit flexible in that way too, because we're never going to be able to, get into the NIL game like that way either. So it's, it'll be interesting to see what it does to everybody. It's really a changing world that we're all just going to have to adapt to in some way, shape, or form.
Well, there's a lot more variables in that decision matrix, that's for sure.
Amen.
So, well, Coach, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk to us in the preseason. It's got to be a busy time for you. Like I tell all the coaches, hopefully we can get you on during the season. Just talk a little bit about the Chicagoland as you get going there. I'd appreciate that.
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, I'd love to. It'd be fun. Well, I appreciate you having me.
Well, absolutely, Coach. That's Coach Scott Cooper. He's the head men's basketball coach, IU South Bend Titans. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to the show. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Also, please like and subscribe this show wherever you watch or listen to it. It helps a lot. And if you have a question you'd like answered on the show, just send me a note at cascadehoopstalk@gmail.com or just shoot me a DM on Twitter. I hope you enjoyed the show. Enjoy your day. We'll see you next time. Yours truly, Billy D. Thank you very much for supporting our podcast. Please like and subscribe. Get out to your local NAI school because NAI basketball is the best entertainment value in America.